Hey everyone, welcome back to another recap here on the channel. Today we're going to be going over the latest episode of The 100 on the CW. We're on a whole new planet this season and in the middle of another conflict that's sure to divide our group yet again. Let's get right into it. On Sanctum, everyone is joining together to celebrate naming day, and one of the healers tells Clarke to keep her wound covered so as not to have people notice that she's a Nightblood. She tells Maddie to keep quiet as well about her background, especially now that she is the commander and she has the flame. During the beginning of the ceremony, Russell makes amends for not letting a family into his safe place during the Red Sun eclipse. He is forgiven, or so it seems, and the crowd claps. Russell tells everyone to share their apologies with one another, and everyone hugs. Clarke goes to find Raven to apologize for everything that happened back on Earth, and for what happened to Shaw. I kind of laugh at how they built up this epic romance for Raven and Shaw, which really only spanned a few episodes. I feel like they're just struggling for some sort of storyline for Raven at this point. And back on this subject, Raven's not having this apology at all, and instead she tells Clarke that she's no different than Octavia, and she walks off. Speaking of Octavia, she's currently being held against her will in the woods by the people she tried to face off against in the last episode. They also have a little girl in their custody, and they're dragging them along through the woods. The little girl begs Octavia to save her because the people are monsters, and ever the dramatic, Octavia tells the little girl that she's a monster as well. Back at Sanctum, Clarke apologizes to Bellamy for her past actions. He doesn't seem to be all that upset with her, and I don't quite think that she understands that she could do pretty much anything to him, and he'd forgive her because he's had a massive crush on her for years now, and only the viewing audience seems to be aware of this. They hug and he gets all the feels, and again, I'm pretty sure she has no clue. I go back and forth on if they'll actually go there with them on this show. I know in the book series that they're a main couple and they have a big fan base, but the show has really strayed away from the book material, and Clarke's shown no interest in him or any other man for quite some time now. Raven is still mourning the latest love of her life when she finds a machine shop where some guy's working on a motorcycle. She offers to help him fix the bike, and they spark some chemistry, and knowing this show, he'll be her new love interest in about 2 seconds. Clarke is changed into yet another new party dress, and she attends some kind of dance or rave or whatever it is, and the healer guy from earlier pulls her into the dance. All the boys are coming for Clarke this season apparently. Even Bellamy is looking on with jealous eyes. Echo interrupts Bellamy's brooding, and they have a little argument in which he tells her to give him some space because he's in mourning for Monty and Harper, and also how he left things with Octavia. Echo walks off as Bellamy looks back at Clarke on the dance floor. He's really not even a little subtle at this point. In the woods, Octavia has escaped, and she makes a break for it, only to have her captors catch up with her again, and the little girl she was with ends up getting shot. Octavia wants revenge against the people who caught her, and somehow Diyoza's there too, and she has motorcycles, and they ride off together into the night. At the naming day celebration, Clarke and the healer guy are getting really close. Maybe there's hope for Bellamy yet, as she seems very into men again. Delilah goes on to her naming day ceremony, and Raven's new love interest is there as well. He appears to know Russell. I'm guessing he's a family member or something. Delilah goes forth to accept her fate, and then she runs back to Jordan to kiss him and warns him not to let her be a face behind the glass, which is a reference to something he told her earlier about how he spent time growing up with all the faces behind the glass, talking about the 100 being in cryosleep. She turns and goes through the door to accept whatever's going to happen to her during the naming day. Now, apparently Clarke just shouldn't be sleeping with anyone, as the first 2 lovers she's had on the show are no longer with us, and this new guy does not appear to be on the up and up. After they've gotten to know each other better, she discovers a drawing he made with little X's over some faces of the 100 and a circle over Clarke's face, which signifies that she's a Nightblood. The drawing looks very similar to the ones we saw in the previous episode that were used to identify people within Sanctum that were targets of the people out in the woods. He goes on to explain himself, but she tries to run, and he shoots her with a paralyzing dart. Delilah comes out of her naming day ceremony with a new name, Priya, and when Jordan goes to talk to her, she seems to not know him. She kind of gives him a blank look, and then she hugs Raven's new love interest. Now, although Clarke is paralyzed, she watches as some guards enter the room and attempt to capture the healer guy. Instead of being taken, he announces death to the Primes and slits his own throat. I'm telling you, Clarke's lady parts are the kiss of death on this show. Bellamy finds Echo, and she tells him that she is in mourning over the loss of Monty and Harper, just in her own way. She gives him some big sob story about her past, and honestly, I could care less about her character, really. But Bellamy is moved by her story and they make up. Clarke is brought to some room where Russell and the other primes are at. It's this super creepy room with skeletons, and they're talking about bringing their child back, and I'm guessing it has something to do with the Nightblood. Clarke will essentially be the host for the return of their daughter. Russell thanks Clarke as they insert something into her and she fades out. Now sometime later, Clarke wakes up, only she's not Clarke anymore. Russell and his wife are telling her to calm down and they're calling her Josephine. She recognizes them as her parents, and then she gets up to look at herself in the mirror. She kind of messes with her hair and she smiles and says she can work with this. Now in the flashback we saw in episode 2, the colonist girl was named Josie. Now I'm wondering if this is the same person, but she's taken over Clarke, and Russell and his wife are the original colonists, only in new host bodies. The episode ends there, and I'm going to leave this one right here. The show is definitely getting interesting, and I'm curious to see where it's going.